government programs that are here to set guidelines to help clients. And the one you have heard of before is the Obama Plan, as it is called most of the time. It is actually called Making Home Affordable, and the initial that you may hear sometimes is MHA. So MHA has various different programs. The two main ones that actually function right now are the refinance program and the modification program. So I'm going to explain briefly what the refinance program is under the government guidelines. So basically, to qualify for that refinance program, you have to fit into certain requirements. For one, the investor who holds your loan, and it is not necessarily your bank, it is the person that actually owns your loan, not the one who is administering your loan. So if your bank is Bank of America, for example, the investor may be another person. And in that instance, if you want to qualify for the refinance program, that investor has to be Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. If you have a private investor, unfortunately, you cannot qualify for that refinance program. The second requirement is that you have to be current on your payments. If you have missed payments, unfortunately, we will not be able to have you fit in. But if you're current, then that is fine. There's a third requirement, and it pertains to the value of your home. If your home has lost value, it's okay, but to a certain point. The difference between what you owe on your mortgage and the value in your home cannot be larger than 25%. Meaning that if your house is valued at $100,000, your mortgage cannot be higher than $125,000. So it's okay to be underwater, but not too much. So if you fit these three requirements, you can apply for a refinance through the government program. That refinance will be pretty streamlined. You will have a market interest rate at today's low rates, and the closing costs will be extremely limited. The refinance will be through your current bank. It will not be a different bank. So that's pretty much how the refinance program works under the government program. Now I'm going to briefly explain how the modification program works, because it is different from the refinance program. The modification program doesn't have an investor requirement, meaning that if your loan is actually owned by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or a private investor, it is irrelevant at that point. It will make things a little easier if you have a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan, but we have a lot of clients who get modifications despite the fact that their loan is owned by a private investor. There also is no requirement about being current or being in default, meaning if you're still making your payments or not making your payments. We have a lot of people who come in here, they haven't made their payments in a very long time for various reasons, and they can still qualify. So there's no such requirement. Basically, pretty much the main requirement is that your payment under the mortgage has to be higher than 31% of your gross income. And I insist on gross because a lot of people think it's based on the income that they get in their pocket at the end of the month. It is actually your income before taxes. So the government determines that if your mortgage payment plus homeowners insurance plus real estate tax plus condo fees, if applicable, if all of that represents more than a third of your gross income, then you should be qualifying under the government program for a modification. So how it's going to happen is that you are going to submit documentation to your bank documenting your income, since that program is income-based. So the bank is going to analyze your income, and if your payment is above that 31%, which is pretty much the magic number for that program, then they will consider you for actually a modification. In order to consider you for that modification, they're going to run what is called a net present value test. For short is NPV test. That NPV test is a complicated mathematical test. Every bank has their own, so we don't always very much know what is in there because they really keep that secret. But overall, what an NPV test says is what is more cost effective for the bank, pretty much. That's the very simple way of putting things. If your NPV test is positive, it means that it's more cost effective for the bank to keep you in that home. If your NPV test is negative, it means that it's more cost effective for the bank to foreclose on you. So the bank is going to run that test. So if your payment is above 31% of your gross income and your NPV test is positive, then the bank will have the option to extend to you a modification offer under the government guidelines. If you actually qualify, the bank will follow 2 steps. There is step 1 and step 2 to that program. The step 1 is a 3-month period, and it's actually a temporary time where the bank is going to put you through the test. They're going to reduce your mortgage payment to 31% of your gross income, actually. And the way they're going to do that is through a waterfall that I'm going to explain right now. At first, they're going to be reducing your interest rate. That reduction can go as low as 2%, but there is no guarantee absolutely that you're going to get a 2% interest rate. What the bank is going to do is that they're going to take your actual interest rate, reduce it by 1/8 until the payment that they calculate meets 31% of your gross income. So if they can achieve giving you a payment that is 31% of your gross income by giving you a 4.5 interest rate, this is what you're going to get. But they may go as low as 2%. It is possible, but they don't have to. So that is the first tool for them to use to actually make your payment affordable. So that was the reduction of the interest rate. Then the second thing they're going to use is that they can extend the period of your loan. Right now, most probably, you have a 30-year mortgage. So they can push that period to 40 years if necessary. Again, it is as long as 40 years, but it doesn't have to be 40 years. It can be 32, it can be 35, it can be 38, whatever is applicable to give you that affordable payment that represents 31% of your gross income. If extending your loan period to 40 years is still not enough to give you an affordable payment, there is a third step to the waterfall that they may use, which is called the principal forbearance. And that principal forbearance means that if you make all your payment on time for 40 years and all this money that you have paid is not sufficient to cover the full amount that you owe on the mortgage, that remainder will be paid in that one last payment in 40 years. So if you're left owing $20,000, $25,000, $50,000, basically, your last payment in 40 years will be that entire $50,000, for example. This is how the government program works. So using these 3 tools, the reduction of the interest rate, the lengthening of your loan period, and the principal forbearance, the bank is going to give you a payment for 3 months, and they're going to observe if you're able to make it. If you make these 3 payments on time, then you could qualify for the step 2 of the government program. And that step 2 is actually the permanent side of your modification. During that step 2, there is going to be a 5-year period. That first 5-year period, you're going to have the same payment, that same low payment representing 31% of your gross income. Then, whatever interest rate you had during that 5-year period, let's assume that they reduced your interest rate to 2.5%, for instance. So for 5 years, you're going to have 2.5%. Then, after that 5 period is finished, your interest rate is going to take 1% every year until it reaches the market interest rate that was in effect when you signed the modification. So if you sign that step 2 modification tomorrow, in 5 years plus how many other years with a plus 1% augmentation, this is what you're going to get, basically. So let's say that today your market interest rate is 5.35. For 5 years, you're going to pay 2.5. The year 6, you're going to pay 3.5. The year 7, you're going to pay 4.5. And the year 8, if I am correct, you're going to pay 5.35, which was the market interest rate at the very beginning, and it's going to stay fixed for the rest of the period of the loan. So you have to understand that even if you get a very low rate and you're excited about it in your papers, that very low rate is going to be good for 5 years only. Then it goes up and stabilizes at a market interest rate for the full period of the loan. I need to bring your attention to the fact that if you are under the step 1, and if you default on these payments during this period where the bank is putting you through the test, you will not have another chance to qualify under the government program. So it is very important that when you qualify for that program, you make all your payments on time, because there will not be a second chance. I also want to bring a little bit of hope to you, because these are guidelines. So if for any reason you do not fit in these guidelines, you still have the chance to qualify for a modification under the bank's program. It will be slightly different from what the government gives you, but a lot of banks do their own modifications that resemble a lot, that are very much alike the government program modification. Sometimes they will be different, sometimes they will be very much alike, but because you don't fit in these requirements for the government program doesn't mean you're not going to get a modification. So you have the choice of qualifying either under the government guidelines or under the bank.